Welcome back. On today's panel, we're talking about renting versus buying at a time when it's probably tougher than ever for first-home buyers to get into the market. Joining me, Tim Fletcher from Fletchers Real Estate, Robert Larocca from the REIV and Greville Pabst from WBP Property. Now, gentlemen, this is you're all just going to say, don't rent, buy.
No, not at all.
Oh,
no. Why would you say that? A third of the people in our community rent, a third are in the process of buying, and a third own their property. So there's got to be a place for all. And frankly, the REIV members, look after each category. So, we're not going to just say buy.
And quite frankly, we need people to rent.
Yes.
Because we've got an enormous number of properties out there that people have bought as investment. So we need tenants. But if you can afford to buy, buy.
And you look at, I suppose, if you look at Melbourne now. Melbourne it's a world city. It's no different to say London, New York, Paris, or Rome. Housing is becoming so expensive in this city that there has to be a place for renting.
However, I think it's fair to say that your principal place of residence or your house, I think, and I don't say this as a real estate practitioner, is the best investment you can have. Because you get the opportunity to have a wonderful life in it if you buy the right one. So you get lifestyle out of it. And guess what? You don't pay tax on it if you don't trade in it. Now, what other investment in this country can you find like that?
Well, what are the strategies then for people who might? I mean, we always read the stories. The younger generation won't be able to ever own their own home, but there are strategies such as buying a small flat, staying with your parents a bit longer while you rent it out, all these sorts of things. Are these things that you're noticing, Greville? More and more, I guess, parents are helping younger people get into the housing market?
I think it's an education as well. I mean, what do you buy? Do you go and buy a three-bedroom house out in the outer suburbs, or do you buy a one-bedroom flat in the inner city areas? And I would always encourage my clients to do the latter, and that is to buy a one-bedroom flat. You're going to do better over a longer period of time than what you are to go out into the urban fringe.
Do you think it's as desperate for people who are renting but want to buy? Do you think the situation is as bad as that? People who want to own their own home will never be able to afford to?
It's often discussed. We get this all the time that nobody can buy anymore, and I think the practical realities is that they can. Forever and a day, first home buyers have had to buy on the fringe of the city. My parents did it in Fawkner in the early 70s, and that was the outskirts of the city. And you look now, and people are doing it in Tarneit or Cranbourne or those sorts of things. So, as a society, we have to be able to create enough housing and keep it affordable enough for people to buy. But that also has an impact upon renting. Over the last 5 years, as a society, we failed to build enough homes. That meant rents went up twice as fast as they did in the first 5 years, but so did house prices. So unless we have enough housing, it affects everybody.
And that is one philosophy, isn't it? Rent where you want to live, for lifestyle, and then invest in real estate where you can.
But if you do, yes, you can do that. But and a number of people do. But you've got to remember they're going to pay tax, capital gains tax, on the investment properties. Now, sure, there are benefits, tax benefits, but, I think owning your own home, most people aspire to do it. And as I said before, there are significant benefits in doing so. But there's also that pride to people taking their own home. And there's some very good tenants about that look after their properties as if they're their own. But there are a lot that don't. And those that own properties generally, it's not just a place where they sleep at night. They really enjoy it. They enjoy the garden. They enjoy looking after it and seeing the fruits of their labour and the benefits that flow from that. So there are upsides on both sides.
Taking a very holistic approach to it, Tim, aren't you?
Well, I try to throughout life.
I'm sure he's got property management as part of the business too, so you have to.
Greville, are you seeing a lot of the people that come to you that want to buy? How many of them want to buy a home to live in, or are looking more for an investment?
Bit of a balance. Our market, we're really targeting towards the investor market. And if you look at Melbourne, vacancy rates in Melbourne right now, they're still relatively low. I mean, I was looking at some statistics the other day, and they're 2.2 to 2.4%, depending on whether you're out in the inner city or middle. Now, a balanced market is, they say, is about 3%. So we still have a shortage of rental accommodation, which I think is will start to drive rents up.
From a financial point of view, renting can make sense too, as long as you have some sort of financial plan for for what you're doing. You're not just renting and putting anything.
Yeah, I think particularly at the moment where there's a bit of uncertainty in the market, and we're noticing that people are more cautious. They're sort of waiting. If they don't have to buy, that they're not. I mean, in terms of getting qualified for a loan, it's becoming more difficult. Finance figures are down, construction starts are down. So people are sitting back and waiting, and so quite often they are renting for the short term, and it's to see what's going to happen.
But look, the flip side to all of that, and I accept all of that too, but a lot of people either are hot or they're cold. In other words, they're either into the market, and it tends to be that the floodgates open up and everyone wants to buy, and that forces the market up. We had that happen a few years ago, and I think it became an unrealistic market. Now, at the moment, because the market's the way it is, it's a tough market, but it's still things are still selling okay. This is the time, if people want to buy, to do it.
Are rentals realistic at the moment?
They're market rents.
Yeah, I think that there is pressure on rents. Rents have risen because of the vacancy rates being so low, particularly in the inner city. And I think that when vacancy rates are less than 3%, you're always going to have that rental pressure because of the lack of supply.
But that's the market.
That's the market, yeah.
And in the long term, we haven't seen the growth in Australia, and people keep suggesting it's going to happen, of that European-style lifetime renting. Our laws don't support long-term renting, and I think we're still some way from being in that European place where people will only ever rent. It's ingrained into us, I think, from our parents to say, buy a home, buy a home, buy a home. Don't waste something. Own something, don't waste the money on rent. It goes nowhere and gets burnt. So I think it's still very strong in our society, the need to buy.
Do you think the ups and downs and the vagaries of the stock market in recent times are helping people decide that they want something a bit solid that they can see? And
I don't think it helps confidence a lot when the market fluctuates like it does. But the flip side to that is I think there are a lot of people who actually see bricks and mortar as being a secure investment. And I think I found over the years when the share markets had some wild ups and downs that people have put their money into real estate because they can touch it and feel it.
Yeah, people have to live somewhere. You can't sleep with a share script over your head.
No.
So
well, you can, but it's very uncomfortable.
Very rare.
What age were you when you bought your first house, Greville?
21.
21?
Yeah, 21.
Can I ask what you paid?
I paid $90,000 for a one-bedroom flat in Kensington Road, South Yarra.
Right.
And I wish I still had that because that would now be worth probably $450,000 to $500,000.
Everyone wishes it. Robert, first house?
I think it was about 27. It was $241,000 in West Coburg. And
is this when you were the mayor of Moreland? Or before?
It was around about that same time.
About that same time.
Yes,
wow,
right.
Things were really on the up for you.
That was all happening, yeah.
Tim?
Don't
have to tell us the decade.
You work it out for yourself, I can tell you. But I bought my first block of land for $6,000. And guess what? I sold it for $9,000 because I thought, you beauty, you made that sort of much money. What a fool I was. Why didn't I keep it?
Did you have a Beatles haircut back then?
I had more hair than I've got now.
All right. So we've all rented, presumably, and we've all bought. I guess it's up to the individual, isn't it? So who can, the renting, it's a very personal decision, isn't it?
Yes, it is. One bit of advice I think is worth giving people here.
This is it. This is going to send them home. Yeah, go for it.
Don't bite off more than you can chew. And that's what a lot of young people do. And when times get tough, they find they have to sell it or the bank sells it for them. Buy something preferably close to the city, as we said earlier, that's modest, and use that as leverage to get into something else. And go up the ladder gradually. That's the best advice I can give.
Gentlemen, thanks for sharing. That's it for this week on the panel.